Tantalus Entertainment presents the Killer Score Podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the latest episode of Killer Score. Happy to see you all again. Once again, I am your host, Dalton Morrison, and you can find me on Twitter at SickJacketMan, on YouTube at the same name, and I'm going to pass it off to my other co-hosts.
Hi, Richard Eckert here, Twitter handle Richard F. Eckert, voice actor, media nerd, and semi-retired film critic. Working on several things coming down the line, so check me out and my upcoming collaborations with fellow voice actors under the label of Tantalus Entertainment.
And I am Erin Murray. I am a full-time crafter, part-time musician. I don't know if that got mentioned on here before. I think only maybe once in our first episode. But anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Nair Murray, or you can check out my website, my crafting website, witchandcrafts.com.
Yep, and summer is starting to wind down to a close. We've only got about a month or so left. So, us here on Killer Score, because, when does summer officially end in September?
Yeah, September 20th.
Not if this
21st.
climate has anything to say about it.
Yeah,
That's true.
but summer is officially winding down to a close. Thankfully, the weather's been unusually tepid here in the Northeast lately. So we are trying to close out our summer series. And, of course, once October rolls around, we'll have some spooktaculars planned for you with a bunch of creepy stuff. But on the second part of our summer festival here, we are doing another film which will be talked about and presented primarily by our co-host Erin here.
The film we're doing today is a short film by Makoto Shinkai. You may recognize that name as being the director of big anime hits such as Your Name and Weathering With You. The film we're doing today is actually a short film by him. It is Garden of Words. It's available on Netflix if you do want to watch it, and basically it's, as we mentioned, it's a short film. Dalton and I watched it, a few months ago?
Or like a year ago or something, but yeah. We wanted to check out more Shinkai's work. Like a lot of people, we got into his work with Your Name. I was aware of this film for a few years before Your Name, because shortly after I was graduating high school, around the time Garden of Words came out, I remember a few anime YouTubers mentioning this briefly and saying like, oh yeah, Makoto Shinkai, he's definitely going to be someone to watch out for, and this film was gorgeous. And that always got my attention because they showed some of the animation off, and I was like, oh, I'll have to check that out sometime. And then Your Name rolled around, and well, the rest is history.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Garden of Words is that it has a very different sound and soundtrack to the Makoto Shinkai films that a lot of people are familiar with, such as, for example, Your Name and Weathering With You. Since this is one of his somewhat earlier films, it doesn't have Radwimps as the musicians on it. It actually has Daisuke Kashiwa doing the soundtrack, and the main theme, called Rain, is a remix of a song from 1988, originally by Senri Oi, but the version used in the movie is a cover by Motohiro Hata.
Yeah, rain is a pretty big theme in this film. Takes place during a particularly rainy season during the summer. And other than that, this is an interesting transitional period in Shinkai's work, I've always thought, because it's one of his only films that doesn't deal with a supernatural element. Your Name and Weathering With You both have supernatural elements to them and are pretty much in a way like romantic urban fantasy films, I would almost say. But this one is completely mundane.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to mention, you mentioned supernatural elements in Makoto Shinkai films. An interesting thing is that this isn't his first film, from what I remember, that doesn't have any supernatural elements in it, because I watched 5 centimeters per second back when I was in high school. I actually found that someone made a comment on it on a YouTube made a comment regarding Makoto Shinkai on a YouTube video saying, "Hey, watch 5 centimeters per second," and I watched the movie and I loved it. But from what I remember, I don't think there's any supernatural elements in it. It's basically like a love story between two teenagers. From what I remember from 5 centimeters per second, it has been years since I watched it, so
Very
if I am
grounded.
wrong, yeah,
And that's
very grounded.
that's one thing that has never escaped Shinkai's works, though. I'm pretty sure pretty much every major film release, if not everyone he's done, features like a love story as its primary sort of like focus.
Rightfully so, because they tend to be on the awesome side.
Yeah, some of them I'm not too sure of. Some of his films have not been. Some of his films have been localized over here, but are a lot harder to find. I mean, 5 centimeters per second you can find fairly easy. Same goes for, you can find Garden Words incredibly easy. It's been on Netflix for years now.
Your Name too, right?
Yeah, Your Name and Weathering with You are insanely easy to find as they're his latest features.
Yeah, we got ours at Target and Best Buy,
Yeah.
so.
But his older stuff's relatively difficult to find, especially because some of his earliest work, I believe, has never been localized in the States. But I've seen this, Aaron's seen it, Richie has not seen it. Have you seen any of Makoto Shinkai's work?
It's interesting that you bring that up, Dalton, because I'm going in as a complete newbie to Shinkai's body of work. I have seen a little bit of Your Name, and I've liked what I saw, but I am completely uninitiated otherwise, and I went in blind for the sake of a fresh critical perspective, because I figured if I didn't have this intro courtesy of Aaron, I would be making endless and annoying Miyazaki comparisons due to my own biases.
Yeah, something that Shinkai suffered from since his work came out. He started to ditch that a bit. That's partially why he changed up the score, because this score in particular helped with a lot of the Miyazaki comparisons. It feels very Ghibli in some moments with the score.
Yeah.
So I can totally see why he wanted to switch things up after like the music of Radwimps kind of inspired him to incorporate their work into Your Name.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Your Name and Weathering with You both have a rock soundtrack by Radwimps.
Mm-hmm.
And Makoto Shinkai, as we mentioned, did that on purpose to differentiate himself from the works of Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Also, if you can find a copy of the novelization of Garden Words, I highly recommend it. I did read it about 6-7 months ago. It goes more in depth into the characters and into some of the story that you don't get to see in the film.
Yeah.
Because the film is fairly short. It's a short film.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get a copy of Garden of Words, it's a English translation, but the book itself was written by Makoto Shinkai.
Yeah, I believe it actually came out shortly after the film, like a few months afterwards.
Yeah, get a copy of it, give it a read. It's really good.
I wonder if he worked close with the localizers and translators for that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised. That does happen sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't.
Because localizations for his stuff has been really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the cast that they get together and the scripts, and you just wonder what the hell everyone dubbing anime back in the 90s were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I've really appreciated about the localizations of Shinkai's work is they don't use the crutch that a lot of localizations of Ghibli movies do. I love Ghibli movies, but they are also, like many American animations, heavily reliant on celebrity voice actors. I mean, in the English localization.
In the English.
These celebrities do great jobs, but, you know, there's working voice actors out there who primarily voice act who I would love to see more in Ghibli works.
Which, in the defense of those movies, that was heavily a result of Disney's long and, quite frankly, awful localization rights ownership saga over Ghibli's movies.
Yeah.
I read an article once that stated that whole period was frankly nightmarish, with Disney basically not budging an inch unless they had full casting control over things, to the point where Neil Gaiman, who did the localization for Princess Mononoke, took forever to actually be credited for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing is that, especially with the Disney dubs of Ghibli films, another thing that I wanted to mention is if you can find a copy of the non-Disney dub of My Neighbor Totoro, please watch that version.
Yeah, and people actually, what's interesting is how some of those cases where they get redubbed. Because I believe the first dub of Totoro is the Disney dub.
No,
Oh, wait,
it
no,
isn't.
it's the Miramax
It's
dub.
the
isn't
Miramax
it?
dub.
Right. Because
Wait, Miramax or Streamline?
I think there's 3 dubs actually
Let's
for
find out.
English
To
of
Wikipedia.
Totoro. But anyway, yeah, I believe there's like 3 dubs of the English version of Totoro.
Because I know the Streamline version had Cheryl Chase of Angelica Pickles fame from the Rugrats.
Yeah.
Here we are. That's awards and nominations.
Yeah.
Cast.
Because I know the localization was... I believe I read there were several localizations. Like there was 3 dubs.
There were 3 dubs.
That's
yeah.
not to say
Yeah.
that all the Disney
English
localizations
dubs, here we
were
are.
bad.
Oh, here we go.
Streamline did a dub in 1988.
Right.
2004, Disney did a dub.
Right.
And there's the original one in Japanese, which obviously is not a dub.
Yeah.
But if you can find the Streamline dub, it's so much better than the Disney dub. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, the only issue is it's kind of difficult to find nowadays. I kind of wish they would do what some modern
Company
sets
stuff.
have done, where they include the older dub.
Case in point, Akira. When Funimation picked that up, they included the Pioneer dub, which was recent, and it had Johnny Young Bosch and everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it included the Streamline dub, which...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, people who like that dub, but that was dreadful.
That's fair. Yeah, and very famously, for those of you who have issues with the Netflix dub of Ava, you will be happy to hear that the G-Kids home release includes the option, at least in the special edition. The standards haven't come out yet, so
Seriously?
we're not sure yet. Yes, they include the ADV dub.
All right.
So, yeah, if you want to go out and buy that, I'd highly recommend it. If you want to wait to see if the standard edition has the dub, I also completely understand that, because the collector's edition is expensive, so I can totally get that. But let's get into it. Let's check out this film. Can't wait to show Richie some of Shinkai's work. Anything else you'd like to add, Aaron?
Not as of right now. I hope you really enjoy it. The animation is gorgeous, the music is great, and you're probably going to cry at the end.
Wouldn't be surprised. Shinkai's works usually invoke waterworks from people.
All
Yeah.
right. Hope you guys have fun out there, members of the audience. Let the blubbering commence in 3, 2, 1.
And we are back. I forgot some things about that one. I remember most of the plot because, well, like I said, it's a short film. I didn't actually check the runtime, but I think it clocks in at just an hour or a little under it.
I think it said it was like 49 minutes.
Oh,
About 45 minutes.
Wow. So yeah, that's it packs. It manages to pack a lot in a very short span of time and still convey an emotional story.
Well, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Seriously.
This film did get some criticism when it came out. A lot of people were uncomfortable about the relationship of the 2 main characters, but I mean, that's part of the point.
Yeah, it's like there's clearly some commentary going on that dynamic, and
Yeah.
I think it's balanced out by the fact that this is all clearly emotional rather than anything,
Yeah.
on
Non-platonic.
Yeah, and it's clearly meant to be a condemnation of how younger teachers in school systems are often sexualized by the students themselves. Because
Yeah.
I've seen that happen so much.
Yeah.
Like
like I would have jumped right on that train, and in fact I started out this movie kind of
like
weary.
oh boy, yeah.
I was thinking to myself,
There's
okay.
clearly an age gap. Yeah.
I'm like
12
okay,
years, because she's
Yeah.
2017,
Yeah.
15.
that age distance is going in a direction, and
Yeah.
then by the end of it I couldn't help but think to myself how impressive it was, how tasteful.
And delicately it's handled.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course, I only had time to think about that when I was in picking up the shattered pieces of my heart, you monsters.
Oh, we have some more movies for you.
But Shinkai's work is very gorgeous. He loves to talk about human relationships, and interestingly enough, I've heard a lot of academic analyses of his work about how it seems like pretty much every single one of his movies deals with, in ways that are both physical and literal in certain cases, distance between people in a relationship. Like every single one of his works features like characters being distant from each other, either on like a metaphorical sense, like a metaphysical sort of deal, or literally physical. Like famously in Your Name, the two protagonists literally live basically across the country in Japan from each other.
Here they sort of lean in towards the former type of
in the
distance,
metaphysical sense.
because
But in the literal too, like we call it how like as like the months progressed in the rainy season, the shot composition shows them slowly getting closer together, like and not on like a physical sense of like getting physical with each other, but on like opening up more with each other,
knowing
being,
more
like,
about
more intimate.
each other. But I think it's impressive that they were able to expertly mask the fact that they went into the same school.
Yeah.
Well, because you think
there's
that
details. There's subtle little details, like
like the face on Miss Yukino's face when she sees
the
crest, the crest on his
crest,
sweater.
and she comments on the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But they also keep it well hidden enough because some of the shot composition implies she works in an office somewhere.
Yeah.
But that was like a red herring moment.
Yeah, because you hear the news
cinematography.
report about like the corporation, like scandals and accusations and stuff, and you think, oh, she works at that corporation.
Yeah, she works
Then they run into each other in the hall
at the high school. And that's, for those who are unaware of what we're even talking about, Garden of Words deals with two characters of a age gap, a 15-year-old young boy who is going through a tumultuous period in his life. The father has left the picture completely. Him and his older brother are living together in a apartment that their mother owns, and the older brother and the mother have recently fought because she is acting incredibly immature and dating men much younger than her. Also a setup for what part of the plot is going to deal with, which I love the little parallels there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that...
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch
Which they go even further into in the book Garden of Words, with the conversation. I think it's in like the second or third chapter that is it Takao or Tako?
I think it's Takao.
Takao?
Or Takao. Oh,
Or Takao.
yeah, I think it's also a pronunciation thing. But
Tomato.
Yeah. Point is, that's another thing. One of the chief criticisms of this when it came out was the length. Like, people were like, I feel like it needed more in it. Like, and some people felt like the relationships don't develop properly enough. And I will say, one interesting quirk of this adaptation is how much... well, the book's honestly the adaptation, because this came first. But one interesting quirk of this film is how much more it relies on inner monologues than other Shinkai works. A lot of Shinkai's works do feature inner monologues, but they're not doing like the heavy lifting. This one does do the heavy lifting for the narrative itself. It essentially focuses on these two characters, 115, 127, who are always meeting up at this one garden in the park. And I think they said it was in Shinjuku.
I think they said Shinjuku.
Yeah, near Shibuya, right?
Yeah, it's in the Kanto region.
Yeah.
In this one park that's in Tokyo, in the Shinjuku area, and they always meet in this little garden only on rainy days. And over the course of these rainy days, they get to know each other more. We learn that the young man has the dreams of becoming a cobbler because he loves to make and design things, and he just has a fascination with making and designing shoes. They set that up right out of the gate too by showing us one of the first things we see of him is his clearly handmade moccasins that are kind of sloppily made, and it shows us that he is not only an interesting, quirky character, but that he clearly is not altogether himself.
You see all those shots of him looking at her feet.
Yeah.
And drawing out...
The way her shoes always dangle off of her, too. Like, she's, like...
Showing off her shoes, kind of.
Yeah. Like, she's, like, teetering at a precipice in her life,
There's one little moment that I like where she's looking at him while he's drawing that, clearly looking like, what the hell's wrong with this kid? Like, hey, what are you doing?
And then when she notices the shoes, she's like, she puts it together. And over the course, we get to learn more about these two characters as they essentially help each other grow as human beings. It's like really one of those beautiful stories I feel about, and it's obviously not the main focus of the narrative, but I think this story does a good job of showing how teachers can enrich the lives of students. But unfortunately, if a teacher does not act 100% professional all the time, people are going to spread rumors about said teacher, and it can ruin their lives.
Yeah.
Like, you see how broken up a ton of these girls are, and how they clearly made a connection with this nice, younger, new classic literature teacher who was clearly getting them invested in the subject. The one girl we see is heartbroken when she sees Miss Yukino come back to the school, and there's almost like hope in her voice, like she's hoping Miss Yukino will continue work there.
And then when it turns out she really was serious about moving away and getting out of there, there's this shot of the crowd of her students flocking around her near the school gate.
Hugging her, crying, and it's beautiful too because you see Tako looking down on this from like the window in the school,
classroom window, and
it shows just how distant these two really are from each other, even though they've grown closer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
It like Shinkai is a master of using space in his movies. It comes up in all of his things. It even comes up on his film posters. Like, nothing made me to appreciate the majesty and the simultaneous beauty and horror of storms better than that promotional poster they gave out for his film Weathering With You.
Yeah.
It just shows you how incomprehensibly huge and almost inhuman looking storms can be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially towards the latter half of this movie when the rain gets really rough and they point out that running only makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
You really get the sense of being trapped there and basically being marooned in the middle of the rain with the tiniest bit of shelter over your head.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I thought it would be more interesting if we showed off one of Shinkai's arguably weaker works to start off with, because it's still an incredibly strong film.
This is weak?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've brought up some of the flaws of this narrative, as like the fact that like you can't explore the narrative as much due to the length.
For what they had, that's like...
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying this is a bad film at all. This is an amazing short film, and it shows you, I feel like, a lot of the strengths and the thematic themes and like the beats and just like quirks of Shinkai's work.
I'm just saying, if this is one of Shinkai's weaker stuff, I cannot wait to see any of his other works out in the wild. Like,
oh yeah.
Forget podcast obligations. I'm just psyched to see the rest of Your Name or Weathering With You and the like.
Oh yeah.
Because if this is just a taste, please sign me up for the full course meal.
This hit me. Weathering With You destroyed me.
Yeah, same.
Like Aaron,
crying in the theater.
Aaron saw me in the theater, and I was just a blubbering mess at that film.
And I remember at one point when we went to see Weathering With You theater, I just like never like Chopin's Raindrop Prelude, and you were just like, you were such a nerd.
I literally looked at her like in horror almost, because like a little etude plays on the fucking like speakers in a fancy restaurant in the movie. She immediately leans into me, says the classical piece it is, and I just go, "Oh my god, you fucking nerd!" And that's me saying that. I was just like, "Holy shit!" It just took a little snippet. It's like when I hear classical anime themes, and I'm like, "Oh, Shala had Shala."
I was gonna say, like, you of all people.
Oh yeah. I know it's Case of the Pot calling the kettle black, but I still had to say it.
Like, stones and glass houses.
Yeah, because
Mr.
I'm
Morrison.
focusing on this scene and trying to take in what's going on, and she just goes over like, "I know the classical piece this is," and I'm like, "Thank you."
I was not prepared to laugh during this because like, if Weathering with You destroyed me, I'm gonna just be dead during that because this movie, obviously, as we alluded to before, hits on such heavy themes and on so many layers of depression and social isolation and just despair that the only reason why I wasn't a complete friggin' mess was because I don't like crying in front of people.
Yeah.
I
have no qualms with it.
I just go looking over at you like, "You okay? You okay? You okay?"
Like you saw it. You saw my. I was like,
I saw your eyes well up.
Yeah.
Like, because in addition to having probably one of the most poignant and realistic emotional breakdowns and like
the performances in this
heat of the moment yelling, the performances, as I was going to segue into, are just so great, especially when you consider that anime direction tends to be a lot more theatrical.
Yeah, this feels very grounded, which is what's...
And the fact that they were able to capture this in the dub is just amazing as well. Because the cast for this consists of a couple of alumni from ADV and Sentai.
Particularly, a lot of you would probably recognize... a lot of you hardcore anime geeks who are watching this will probably recognize Patrick Poole, who's probably most famous to most of you for his work on the Fate series. He's done a lot of work on Fate. Specifically, Patrick Poole has done a lot of the recent Fate series. He's basically the main VA in English for this point of Shiro, who's like essentially like one of the main pro tags of like the Fate series. I'm just speaking casually. Don't come after me, Fate fans. I have not actually watched a lot of Fate. I've only just picked up on little things from our friends who are hardcore Fate fans. Which reminds me. Oh, hi, Blake, Eric, and Kiki, if you're listening to this. Oh, Entrin. If the four of you are listening to this, hi. You can yell at me later.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'd say the highlight performance of this is unmistakably Maggie Fleckno as Yukino.
Yeah.
Because she captures basically the full spectrum of human emotion on her end so well.
Yeah.
From the casualness of her small talk in the beginning to the absolutely heart-ending crying fit that she has
at the end
of the very end of the film. That sounded like... It didn't sound like someone trying to sound like they're crying. It
sounded like someone actually bawling their eyes out.
It sounded like someone bawling their eyes out. And what's worse is she delivers lines in the middle of this.
So it's kind of hard to decipher too, because she's like crying the realistic way, and the way you like your words when you're really crying.
And
like
you're
that,
like,
you know,
you're like struggling for breath.
Yeah.
And it's made the worse by the circumstance in that she's both at her lowest point and also filled with some sort of twisted joy because she's acknowledging the fact that this student saved her.
Yeah, that she has weakness in her life and someone was able to help her lift herself out of that weakness.
So,
because she literally says, "You saved me."
Yeah.
It's hard to hear, but she said, "You saved me."
Oh yeah, she said, "You saved me." And right here.
And that's basically like the last line of the movie, too.
Yeah.
It's a strong narrative.
That's her last line anyway, because...
Because he has some monologue at the end
Yeah.
about, like, barely passing exams and going on to do other things.
Although the final closing line of, like, every time I added another layer, I thought of her. Like, that's a very great closing line. I am
classic.
I am a sucker for when narratives open with very strong opening lines to just, like, pull you in, and when they end with one that just, like, hits you.
With the whole thematic echo thing.
Yeah.
Because that was the moment, like, when she's... Great, you save me. That's when Aaron turns to me, and I was just like, that was the moment when, like, the mask was, like, cracking off completely. I'm like, I can't take this.
And I just want to do some quick other shouts to, I love the fact that there was some more obscure voice actors in this. Yeah. Crash Boost did a great job as Takala's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he had that very casual vibe to, like, his narrative that made him feel like the older brother who loves to bust, like, the younger sibling's chops. And is, like, older and a bit, like, you know, hardened.
His delivery is great for that, too, because you know how...
He feels exhausted.
You know how they teach you to enunciate when dubbing? Because you have to hit every point.
Yeah.
You can't really slur your words.
Yeah.
But,
So otherwise they won't understand you.
But here he doesn't really lean too hard into enunciating, so it sounds like he's a lot more conversational.
Which works.
Yeah.
It works perfectly. And same goes for Mike Yeager as Matsumoto, the friend who like explains the whole Miss Yukino situation. He felt so perfect in that. Like he was talking about it in the way you would talk to your friend about something like that.
While they're throwing like a tennis ball on the roof.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that weightlifting scene from Trainspotting where Tommy's talking about Begbie and what really happened when he was shooting pool.
Yeah. Some of you might know Mike Yeager for... funny enough, he it seems like he worked with Patrick Poole before. They both were on Mr. Tonagawa's Middle Management Blues for the dub. And, they both were on Food Wars. So it seems like they probably worked with... So it looks like they worked with each other before. Most of the voice actors in this are more obscure ones who...
Great cast.
Really need more work, in my opinion.
Great casting choices all around, too. I think the biggest name in this was probably Brittany Karbowski, who voiced the brother's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she's only in it for...
Briefly.
Like 2 scenes.
2 scenes.
And shout out to Hilary Hagg for the brief bit she plays Aizawa. She does a great job of immediately making you hate her.
Yeah.
The second she opens her
She
mouth.
turns on the mean girl style.
And you're just like, I hate this girl. Holy shit, I hate this girl. Like, the second she starts speaking, that takes skill.
And then he comes in and just slaps her. I'm like, yeah!
Oh god, it's so satisfying when someone gets fucking slapped for being an asshole.
I remember, this is probably my second or third time watching this, and I'm just like, I want to catfight that girl.
Yeah. And that's saying a lot, because you are not the guy who just, like, wants to just beat the shit out of a person.
You seem too mellow for that most of the time.
She is most of the time, which really says a lot.
Some people just deserve that.
Which
though.
I think scares Dalton sometimes.
a little bit. But no.
Isn't that part of the charm, though?
Yeah, true. But no, I guess I just wanted to say for this, if you were thinking of getting into Shinkai's works, but you wanted to like go in on something that's like not as much of like a big commitment, like I get it. Sometimes you see a movie and you look at the length, and even if it's an hour and a half, you think, do I really want to sit down and watch all of this? And if you want something that's more grounded and deals with human emotions in a very poignant way, and has gorgeous art direction and just is masterfully put together, but you don't have to sink like the whole bit of a movie into it, I'd highly recommend like checking this out. Or if you're just a casual anime fan or someone who likes Shinkai's work but hasn't seen it, definitely check it out. And if you decide, wow, I really like this, I'd like to know more about these characters, go and pick out the novel, because they released a novel a few months after the film came out, and essentially expands on the story more.
And if you're in Barnes & Noble, it's in the anime section. I will let you know that.
Yep.
Nice.
So, yep.
Well, not the anime, the manga section.
Yeah.
I am living proof that this is a great first taste of Shinkai. As someone who had cursory knowledge of him at best, I'm currently beating myself senseless for not being smart enough to pick up on this guy's work earlier.
Oh yeah, he's one to look out for. He's
Definitely one to look out for.
He's definitely been taking like names in the anime industry. Your Name and Weathering with You were massive successes. Hell, he even was when we watched the behind the scenes stuff for Weathering with You that played at the end of the film. He was saying just how like anxiety inducing it was to make a movie that followed up on Your Name, because he immediately thought, well, I've got to do better. Because it's like,
Classic.
you know, it's like, well, if Your Name's what put me on the map, I gotta like take what people liked from this and do it even better.
It's that classic fear of the sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, and I gotta say, folks, he does not disappoint.
I've not seen a film that's disappointed me.
Yeah.
And I've seen 4 of his films.
Yeah, you've seen even more of his work than I have, because you've seen 5 per second.
Once again, if this is him on his weaker or low-key end,
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine what his other movies will do for me, because he's got a great eye for verisimilitude and negative space. His cinematography is on point. I'm especially impressed by how he managed to sync the cuts and the transitions to the music.
The piano pieces, to like the little, like, you know, the little beats of like certain keys and notes.
The little, yeah, the
like
louder
the
notes.
sharp notes.
The
where
sharper
he'll
notes.
Cut, it's like
Yeah.
so well
It's
put
like
together.
cut. Yeah,
Remind-
bad example,
yeah.
but it's
Reminds me a lot of
cut,
like
cut, cut.
yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me a lot of like some of the stuff you'd see in like people like Edgar Wright's work, you know?
Yeah, and seeing that done well in animation without it being super jarring.
Oh, it's sublime.
It's just like, it's like if an orchestra were put to paper and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm so mad at myself right now. How have I not seen more of his stuff? He's so good.
Well, we won't be covering at least his later works on the podcast. As much as I'd love to talk about Your Name and Weathering with You, they're essentially household names at this point. Your Name more so, because like everyone's heard of Your Name, and it's even been parodied in popular television shows like Pop Team Epic. But Weathering with You is, I feel like, eventually going to get to that point. It just released at a bad time. You know?
Yeah, we may eventually cover 5 centimeters per second, because that was one of his earlier works, but that's
or even some
up
of
to
his
decision.
other films that were more low-key, you know.
That said, in the interest of not putting my heart in a paper shredder, I would like to help us continue with Summer, seeing as how it's stretching on forever and ever over here in the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, in the spirit of wide-eyed, curious summer adventure movies from the spirit of the 1980s movies, I would like to take us back to a space exploration movie from Joe Dante that was wrongfully shafted and relegated to VHS fame back when it came out. Trailing us back to River Phoenix. Tune in next time in a couple of weeks on Killer Score for Joe Dante's Explorers.
Yep, and as usual, we'll give you the places where you can find us. If any of these things sounded appealing to you while watching Garden of Words, you can check it out on Netflix. Maybe pick up a Blu-ray for yourself if you really like it. I don't think it's leaving Netflix anytime soon. It's been on there for years now. But signing off, I'm your host and creator. Yeah, signing off, I'm your host and creator, Dalton Morrison. Once again, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube by my handle SickJacketMan. Stuff coming at you soon, and I will pass it off to the others.
Richard Eckert here, co-host, audio engineer for Killer Score, and lead casting / voice actor for an upcoming troupe of productions known as Tantalus Entertainment. You can check out my solo stuff and the stuff that I plan on doing with voice actors and other collaborators on my YouTube channel under simply Richard Eckert. And you can follow me on Twitter at Richard F. Eckert.
And I am Erin Murray. I am from witchandcrafts.com. You can always check out that website for nice, fun crafting stuff. I also have a Twitter account and an Instagram. Don't really use the Instagram, I use Twitter more, but anyway. It's Nire Murray on both, Nire. And, yeah, signing off.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. Stay cool and stay hydrated out there.
Yep.